Welcome to Math Grade 3s and any Grade 2s who feel like tagging along. Glad to have you here. Let's begin by reviewing counting by threes. Now remember the trick I showed you yesterday? If you hold up 3 fingers and you count along, you can figure out any numbers that you're missing. So let's just count through the ones I've got here, practice with the fingers, and then move on to 4s. So we have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30. Now let's do it with the 3 fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. Great. Presto changeo, let's do 4s. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, 40. Now with the fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, and 40. There we go. All right, let's get back to arrays. Now, yesterday I gave you some new vocabulary. For our purposes, an array is organizing objects into a rectangle and making even rows and columns. Now, if you'll remember from yesterday, rows are lines that go side to side, and columns are rows that go up and down. Now, I said that I was going to look up why column has an N in there that doesn't make a sound. And the reason for that is that the word column actually comes from another language originally. A lot of our words are like that. English is something of a new language compared to a lot of other ones. And a lot of our words come from another language called Latin. Now in Latin, the word was columna, and you can hear the N in that word. At some point over the years, people stopped pronouncing the N, but it stayed in the spelling even though we didn't pronounce it anymore. So that's just a tiny, tiny history lesson on why column has an N for no good reason. There is a reason, maybe not a good reason, but it is a reason. So there you go in case you were curious. All right, so let's use what we know about arrays, columns, and rows to figure out how many circles are here. Now you could just count by ones. There aren't a lot of circles there, that'd be fine. But come on, we're big kids. It's time for us to learn how to multiply. Let's use that to make our lives a little bit easier. So, as you can see, we have got 1, 2, 3 columns and 3 in each column. So why don't we start counting by threes? Now let's see if we can remember how to count by threes without the numbers there. We have 3, 6, and then 9. Let's double check that to make sure we've got it correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right. So, as you can see, we've got 3 columns and 3 rows. So to write that as a multiplication question, you write the rows and the columns. In this case, they're the same number. Now, we put the X in the middle, which means multiplying, and we pronounce that as times. 3 times 3 equals 9. Now, this is where a lot of kids have trouble making the transition from adding to multiplying. A lot of kids look quickly at this and think 3 times 3 is 6. Now, that's understandable. You've been working with adding since kindergarten or grade 1. And the multiplication sign looks a lot like an addition sign, just kind of on its side a little bit. And I know some of you are not the neatest writers, and so your pluses could well end up looking like this. So you're going to have to look at these questions carefully. slow down and think about what they're asking you to answer. Some of you love to zoom, zoom, zoom and get everything done so you can get over to something more interesting. But you need to slow it down and think about what the question is actually asking you to say. So we have figured out 3 times 3 equals 9. Let's do another example. And then I'm going to show you how we can do the opposite to solve questions. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to add on some more counters here, and I'm not going to erase the numbers, and you'll see why here in just a moment. So as you can see, what I've done is I've added a new column, and there are still 3 in this column because of course we're making an array. An array needs to be a perfect rectangle, so all the rows and columns need to be equal. So if we still have 3 in each column, we can continue counting by 3s, which is why I didn't erase the numbers. We can still go 3, 6, 9, and then of course 3 more is 12, because you've all memorized counting by 3s already, yes? Yes? Well, keep practicing anyway. All right, so we have 3, 6, 9, and 12. So this time when writing the multiplication question, we do still have 3 rows here. You see that? 1, 2, 3. But now we do not have 3 columns anymore. We have 4. So we are going to now write 3 times 4. And that is not equal to 9 anymore, as we have counted up. It is equal to 12, which I believe is the question we did yesterday in our video. So you already saw that one, and perhaps you even remembered it, if so, great. Eventually you're going to want to memorize all these. But what I'm doing now is teaching you how to figure them out and understand them. Because if you don't understand the math, memorizing doesn't help you a lot because you can't use the math to figure things out. So we start by understanding what it means, and then we memorize later. Memorization is important too, well, and we'll get there. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move all this off to the side here. And we're going to do this backwards. Not really, we're just starting at the other end. I'm going to write the multiplication question. And then we are going to build an array to help us answer it, okay? So the multiplication question we're going to start with is 2 times 4. Now I won't write the answer yet because we have not figured it out. 2 times 4. So if we want to use an array to figure out the answer, you need to remember 2 things. For our purposes, the first number will be the rows and the second number will be the columns. Later on, you'll understand that it doesn't matter which number is which, but for now, let's just keep it very simple. The first number is the rows, the second number is the columns. So as you can see, there are going to be 2 rows in this array, all right? So I'm just going to start the rows right here. So we can see that we're going to have 2 lines side to side. Now, it says that we need 4 columns, which is the same as saying how many circles in the row. So I've got 1 column. I need to have 2 more. Now I have 3 columns. I'm going to add 2 more to make 4 columns. So just to review, we've got 1, 2 rows over here, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 columns over here. Don't forget the end. All right, so now we've got the array. Let's figure out how many counters are in the array to give us the answer. Now we can do this in a couple of ways. We can look at the columns and count by 2s, which is the easier option because you've been practicing how to count by 2s for ages. But let's go the other way because we're still practicing how to count by 4s. And actually, once you've memorized that, this will be the shorter way to do it. You can see that there's 4 in each row, so let's count by 4s. I'll grab another color to show you. This first row has 4. Counting by 4s, the second row makes the total of 8. And we have 8 as the answer to our question. Just to make sure that you know what I'm doing here, let's count these by ones and make double sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Great. Okay, so as you can see, we can use arrays to answer multiplication questions. So let's do another one. This time we've got 1 times 5. Now there's a trick to doing 1 times something, and you're going to see for yourself what that is once we answer the question. So let's remember, the first number is going to equal rows, which is the side-to-side lines. The second number is going to represent the columns, which is up and down lines. So let's take a careful look. We are only going to have one row in this question. So I'm going to put one counter there to show that we have one row. Now, we need 5 columns. We've only got 1 column so far. Now, there's only 1 counter in the column. That's okay. We're allowed to do that. So let's add some more columns. We've got 1 column, 2 columns, 3 columns, 4 columns, and 5 columns. So I'll just write that out to be really clear. We've got 1 row over here. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns over here. Again, I know that there's only 1 counter in each column, but we still consider it a column for this kind of math. Now, you can already see the answer, I'm quite sure, but I'll walk you through it just to be sure. We can count by ones because there's only 1 in each column. Or we can count by 5s and count the whole row at once because we know there's 5 in the row. Let's do it both ways. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 5. So that's very simple. The answer to 1 times 5 is 5. And that looks very strange at first when you're learning to multiply. You look at it, 1 times 5 and that's 5, it's the same number. So that is the trick to multiplying by ones. Whenever you multiply a number by 1, the other number is the answer. So that is kind of a neat trick to know because once you remember that, it's very easy. So for example, you could say, what's 1 million times 1? The answer is, once again, 1 million. So there, you can impress your friends unless they've watched this video too, and then they'll say, yeah, we know that already. But go impress somebody. Anything times 1 is the same number that you started with, all right? Because you're only making 1 row. And so you don't have to count by any skip counting numbers. You're just making 1 row. All right, so. Now just to finish this off, some of you might be thinking, well, Mrs. Cron, that's great and all, but really, what's the point of this? It's very easy just to count all those dots. I mean, look at this one here. We can even guess that it's 6. It's just easy to see. You are correct. However, we're learning this with smaller numbers so you can apply it to bigger numbers. Because later on in your schooling, you'll be asked to multiply much bigger numbers. And believe me, you do not want to be drawing hundreds of dots in order to figure out what the answer is. So just to show you that, remember these guys from the video from yesterday? Now you could go and count each one at a time and you would find the answer. Or you can skip count and find it much quicker. So let me show you this by skip counting. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32. So then you would know that there are 32 stick figures on this board. Now you can also do this with multiplication. And I'm just going to quickly erase the 4s here to write the question so you can see it. So as you remember, we want to do the row is the first, we want to write how many rows and how many columns, correct? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 rows multiplied by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 columns. Now, once you have these memorized, then you can look at that and say, oh, I already know that. The answer to that is 32. And that is much, much faster than counting each one. And the numbers, of course, get bigger and bigger. I saved this one from yesterday as well. This one, we have 8 rows and 8 columns, which we would write as 8 times 8. Now, this is something you don't have to learn this year. You'll be learning the larger numbers next year. But just to show you counting by 8s and what number you're going to get to, I'll just do that for your own interest. 8, 16, 24, 32. Uh-oh. No, I'm with you. 40, 48, 56, 64. You know, even though I've been learning that for many, many years, when you don't practice something, you have to think really carefully about it to make that connection in your brain. So obviously I haven't counted by 8s in quite a while because my brain took a second to make the connection. I did eventually get the right answer, but it seems like I need a little bit of practice myself. So I will go and practice my counting. I hope you'll go practice yours. If you want to practice this idea on your own, then you don't need these magnets unless you have some at home. If you do, great, go make some arrays on the fridge. But if you don't, just grab some paper. You can draw little dots, or you can draw any shape you want, hearts, stars, Pokemon, whatever you like to do. And then you can practice writing the multiplication question that you would get from that array. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I will see you tomorrow.